the State of the Union and the state of our economy is strong.
I guess let me check my numbers again here. 6%? Inflation numbers are out today. 6%. That's on top of 7.9% we saw last February. So if I'm doing the math, I did go to community college. Let's see, carry the one. That means you're at least 13% poorer now than you were 2 years ago. And the President of the United States of America continues to get up in front of everybody and brag about how well things are going. And oh, did I mention real hourly earnings down 1.3% for now 23 straight months. Now, this is a problem because here's what's happening. All right, I'm going to try to put this as nicely as I can, but I'm just going to give it to you right between the eyes, okay? We are in very serious financial trouble now, very, very serious, and it's about to get worse. Here's why. They're raising interest rates. They're raising interest rates because they're trying to avoid hyperinflation. The only thing that can stop inflation, well, it would be better if you never printed the money to begin with. So in general, you shouldn't stop your economy and print a bunch of money and pass a bunch of $1 trillion bills. But we did that. And so now that we can't undo it, that toothpaste doesn't go back in the tube. So now we have to raise interest rates to avoid hyperinflation. Hyperinflation is the kind of thing that can break your nation up. It's that big of a deal. The whole country just goes right off a cliff. The world stops using the dollar as the reserve currency. It's really, really bad. So we can't afford hyperinflation. So we have to raise interest rates. We have to. Raising interest rates will cause a recession. We know that. It restricts the money that flows around our economy. Money gets more expensive to borrow, so people stop doing as much of it. Raising interest rates will cause a recession, but we have to. We have no choice in the matter. Now, what just happened? Had a couple bank closures. Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank. You saw what Moody's did today, downgraded 6 banks. The banks have thrown up the, hey, what are you doing with interest rates thing? And we're already hearing the rumblings that the Fed is going to be scared off of raising interest rates anymore. Hey, don't raise interest rates, we'll close. But remember like 2 minutes ago when we were just talking about what we must do? There are laws in economics. It doesn't even matter. Democrat, Republican, laws, Constitution, none of these things matter. There are laws in economics. Those interest rates must go up. They probably have to go up significantly. They probably have to go up so much that it causes a severe recession. And they probably have to do all that to avoid something much, much worse. But if we don't do that, because the banks got scared and the regulators got scared and Biden got scared, man, we're heading to something that's not good. And it's not good at all. Here's what Larry Summers had to say.
So my guess is that at some point the Fed will push and push. We will not get inflation accelerate and skyrocket out of control. But my guess is that the process of bringing down inflation will bring on a recession at some stage, as it almost always has in the past.
Did you hear what he just said? Now picture this. Picture them not raising the rates. If they don't raise the rates and raise them significantly, we're in deep trouble. Tell you what, I'm going to talk to Trish Regan about this. Joining me now is somebody who probably doesn't need any introduction to you. She is the host of the Trish Regan Show, also TrishReganIntel.com. Okay, Trish, we've seen all the talking points now for 2 days. 2 banks closed, Moody's downgrades 6 others. Sure feels like the beginning of something ugly. What say you?
I think we got a real problem here. I think you've got a Federal Reserve that moved very aggressively to hike rates. By the way, we got inflation data out today, which indicates they need to do that. They moved aggressively, but it was too much, too soon for a banking system that hadn't quite caught up. I mean, all the banks were sitting there with paper at 1.5% treasury notes. And now they're faced with this massive change in rates. They should have seen it coming, by the way. You know, Jesse, I think if they had listened to me or probably to you as well, any of the discussions on inflation that we've had, it was out there. But they were drinking the Kool-Aid. They believed what Powell told them. They believed what Janet Yellen was saying. They believed what Biden was saying. Oh, this inflation is just transitory. And so they did not hedge properly their portfolios. As a result, there are multiple banks. Regionals are the ones I'm most worried about. They're going to face a very, very challenging situation. I think the reality of it, though, is now that the Fed came out and said, hey, you know, we'll lend money to any bank that needs it, effectively guaranteeing everybody's deposits. The reality is you're going to find less and less regionals and more big banks when the year is done. And the problem for consumers is we all know what it's like to be on hold in another country somewhere. You're going to have to deal with a big bank that's probably going to charge you more and you're going to get less customer service. But listen, it's a mess. I think they did what they had to do, but it doesn't underscore how difficult I think a year this may be.
Trish, can you explain to me, because I've always had this problem when really smart people claim to be stupid or act stupid. Now, I understand ideologically I probably differ from many people who run the finance world nowadays, but they're not idiots. We're dealing with a bunch of University of Chicago, Harvard grads. I am an idiot, and I knew interest rates were going up because that's inevitable. In fact, they told us 1,000 times they have to jack the rates up in order to keep the economy from driving off a cliff with hyperinflation. I knew it was coming. I went to community college. None of these super smart guys could see this coming? Come on.
You make a good point. Now, at some point they should have, but keep in mind, I think they were a little bit distracted. Going further back, you know, maybe they were drinking the Kool-Aid. By late last year, they really should have figured this one out. But you had a head of risk management for the UK at the Silicon Valley Bank who really seemed to be more focused on the promotion of LGBTQ issues, having a mental health blog on the company's website. That was a big part of her endeavor and her job, when she really should have been saying, wait a second, what are we doing to hedge our bets here in the event that interest rates move higher? I think that in this ESG environment where companies are very, very pressured to be very politically correct, there has been an overemphasis on that political correctness, which comes at the cost, frankly, of the entire system. I mean, that's no exaggeration. The entire system right now is teetering on the edge because these people did not keep their eye on the ball.
Okay, will this refocus them? Because as you brought up, with these inflation numbers that we have today, we already know they're going to raise interest rates again. They've basically told us as much. This is going to be a bumpy year, to put it mildly, maybe a bumpy few years. Is this enough to slap some of these people awake, set aside the diversity hire stuff and start focusing?
I don't think it is yet. I mean, I think you're going to have to really start to see some shaky ground for people to focus more. Don't forget, one of the people that was actually on the board of the other bank that went out of business over the weekend, Signature Bank, happened to have been Barney Frank, Jesse. Barney Frank, who was very instrumental in the creation, if you ask me, of the entire 2008 crisis, because he had this belief that somehow banks should just be willing to lend to everyone, regardless of whether or not they had a job, whether or not they had any no income, no assets. The Nina loans, those were quite famous, and they were a result of Barney. So it's kind of the same cast of characters over there. They think that none of this is going to have any repercussions. And then when it does actually have an effect on things, they're like, whoa. And then they get government to step in and fix it all. But don't forget, this was a government problem. Jerome Powell and Joe Biden, they created this inflation by pumping so much money into the economy and then refusing to take the punch bowl away at the appropriate time. And then these, frankly, I'm sorry, these idiots at some of these banks never bothered to hedge things because, well, why bother? Biden says it's going to be okay. Jerome Janet, they all think this inflation is going to be manageable. It's not manageable. The train has left the station. We're now looking at upwards of, 6% we got today. Inflation is here.
Where are we going from here? Are we looking at Great Recession? Are we looking at a depression? Are we going to have a little 2-month bump and we'll come back?
No, you know what? I'm going to
here?
tell you, Jesse, here's the thing, and this is what's sort of scary. They're going to kick the can down the road some more. So the reality is you need to address the inflation. We had this 6% jump in consumer prices, but they can't now. They can't because they wanted to raise rates a 0.5 point next week. They're not going to be able to do it because then they're looking at this banking crisis. So what's going to happen? They might raise by a 0.25 point. There are many analysts right now, including the folks over at Goldman Sachs, where I used to work, that think, no, you're not going to actually get any increase at all. It's going to be a big fat zero. So that's why, if you look at today's market, people are really excited because they're like, oh, the sugar high continues. And that's all this is. At some point, you got to actually fix things. And that's when the you-know-what hits the fan, so to speak. And we started to see a little bit of that. And they immediately said, whoa, we're going to take care of this. Well, what happens when you can't take care of it anymore?